He who would trade liberty for some temporary security deserves neither liberty nor security. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. We are all born ignorant, but one must work hard to remain stupid. There are many roads to success, but only one sure road to failure, and that is to try to please everyone else. Make yourself sheep and the wolves will eat you. Life's tragedy is that we get old too soon and wise too late. It is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. Remember not only to say the right thing in the right place, but far more difficult still, to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. A false friend and a shadow attend only while the sun shines. A slip of the foot you may soon recover, but a slip of the tongue you may never get over. Freedom is not a gift bestowed upon us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. Tricks and treachery are the practice of fools that don't have brains enough to be honest. If you do tomorrow what you did today, you will get tomorrow what you got today. A long life may not be good enough, but a good life is long enough. Common sense without education is better than education without common sense. Common sense without education is better than education without common sense. When the well is dry, we know the worth of water. There are two ways to increase your wealth. Increase your means or decrease your wants. The best is to do both at the same time. Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. Man will ultimately be governed by God or by tyrants. A brother may not be a friend, but a friend will always be a brother. Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. A good spouse and health is a person's best wealth. All highly competent people continually search for ways to keep learning, growing, and improving. They do that by asking why. After all, the person who knows how will always have a job, but the person who knows why will always be the boss. The heart of a fool is in his mouth, but the mouth of a wise man is in his heart. To succeed, jump as quickly at opportunities as you do at conclusions. He that displays too often his wife and his wallet is in danger of having both of them borrowed. You must always be prepared. Make sure to look at things from all angles. If you are not prepared, you will fail. I saw few die of hunger, of eating 100,000. Here is my creed. I believe in one God, creator of the universe, that he governs it by his providence, that he ought to be worshipped, that the most acceptable service we render him is doing good to his other children, that the soul of man is immortal and will be treated with justice in another life, respecting its conduct in this. I never knew a man who was good at making excuses who was good at anything else. I am for doing good to the poor, but I differ in opinion about the means. I think the best way of doing good to the poor is not making them easy in poverty, but leading or driving them out of it. Speak little, do much. To be proud of knowledge is to be blind with light. Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. How do you become better tomorrow? By improving yourself, the world is made better. Be not afraid of growing too slowly. Be afraid of standing still. Forget your mistakes, but remember what they taught you. So how do you become better tomorrow? By becoming better today. Fear God, and your enemies will fear you. Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved, and tyranny is erected on its ruins. Republics and limited monarchies derive their strength and vigor from a popular examination into the action of the magistrates. For every minute spent in organizing, an hour is earned. Money makes money. And the money that makes money makes more money. 13 virtues necessary for true success: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. A good example is the best sermon. The U.S. Constitution doesn't guarantee happiness, only the pursuit of it. You have to catch up with it yourself. The ordaining of laws in favor of one part of the nation to the prejudice and oppression of another is certainly the most erroneous and mistaken policy. An equal dispensation of protection, rights, privileges, and advantages is what every part is entitled to and ought to enjoy. The world is run by the people who show up. Whatever is begun in anger ends in shame. He that would live in peace and at ease must not speak all he knows nor judge all he sees. The man that walks with crowd will get no farther than the crowd. The man that walks alone will reach places unknown. Women are books, and men the readers be. Beer is proof that God wants us to be happy. Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man as far as by it he does not hurt or control the right of another, and this is the only check it ought to suffer and the only bounds it ought to know. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freedom of speech, a thing terrible to traitors. Those who laugh often never grow old. Doing your best means never stop trying. How few there are who have courage enough to own their faults or resolution enough to mend them. Well done is better than well said. Instead of cursing the darkness, light a candle. Two passions have powerful influence on the affairs of men, the love of power and the love of money. History affords us many instances of the ruin of states by the prosecution of measures ill-suited to the temper and genius of their people. The ordaining of laws in favor of one part of the nation to the prejudice and oppression of another is certainly the most erroneous and mistaken policy. These measures never fail to create great and violent jealousies and animosities between the people favored and the people oppressed, whence a total separation of affections, interests, political obligations, and all manner of connections, by which the whole state is weakened. By improving yourself, the world is made better. Be not afraid of growing too slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. He that is of the opinion money will do everything may well be suspected of doing everything for money. Repeal that law, and you will soon see a change in their manners. 6 days shalt thou labor, though one of the old commandments long treated as out of date, will again be looked upon as a respectable precept. Industry will increase, and with it plenty among the lower people, their circumstances will mend, and more will be done for their happiness by inuring them to provide for themselves than could be done by dividing all your estates among them. To lengthen thy life, lessen thy meals. Great beauty, great strength, and great riches are really and truly of no great use. A right heart exceeds all those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety, deserve neither liberty nor safety. The learned fool writes his nonsense in better language than the unlearned, but it is still nonsense. If better is possible, good is not enough. You can do anything you set your mind to. I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that without his concurring aid we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel who is strong. He that can conquer his bad habits. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Do you love life? Then don't waste time, because time is life. The noblest question in the world is, what good may I do in it? I wake up every morning at 9 and grab for the morning paper. Then I look at the obituary page. If my name is not on it, I get up. A nation of well-informed men who have been taught to know and prize the rights which God has given them cannot be enslaved. It is in the region of ignorance that tyranny begins. Benjamin Franklin, when you're finished changing, you're finished. Reading makes a full man, meditation a profound man, discourse a clear man. Everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes. If you laugh it off and keep going and try to give it your best the next time around, people respect that. The way to secure peace is to be prepared for war. They that are on their guard and appear ready to receive their adversaries are in much less danger of being attacked than the supine, secure, and negligent. It is better to let 100 criminals go free than to imprison one innocent man. Love your enemies, for they tell you your faults. There is scarce a king in 100 who would not, if he could, follow the example of Pharaoh, get first all the people's money, then all their lands, and then make them and their children servants forever. The way to wealth depends on just two words: industry and frugality. Sell not virtue to purchase wealth, nor liberty to purchase power. We constantly change the world, even by our inaction. Therefore, let us change it responsibly. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. When it comes to investing, nothing will pay off more than educating yourself. Do the necessary research, study, and analysis before making any investment decisions. Who is wise? He that learns from everyone. If all printers were determined not to print anything till they were sure it would offend nobody, there would be very little printed. There is much difference between imitating a good man and counterfeiting him. Arguing is a game that two can play at. But it is a strange game in that neither opponent ever wins. You may delay, but time will not. Many a man thinks he is buying pleasure, when he is really selling himself to it. If you would persuade, you must appeal to interest rather than intellect. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I didn't fail the test, I just found 100 ways to do it wrong. Out of adversity comes opportunity. Your argument is sound, nothing but sound. The difficulty lies in finding out an exact measure, but eat for necessity, not pleasure, for lust knows not where necessity ends. Your net worth to the world is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones. The rotten apple spoils his companion. If a man could have half of his wishes, he would double his troubles. Do not anticipate trouble, or worry about what may never happen. Keep in the sunlight. The way to see by faith is to shut the eye of reason. The Constitution only guarantees the American people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself. In these sentiments, sir, I agree to this Constitution, with all its faults, if they are such, because I think a general government necessary for us, and there is no form of government, but what may be a blessing to the people if well administered, and believe further, that this is likely to be well administered for a course of years, and can only end in despotism, as other forms have done before it, when the people shall become so corrupted as to need despotic government, being incapable of any other. It is very hard to dislike someone you have helped. It is easier to prevent bad habits than to break them. Trusting too much to others' care is the ruin of many. No gains without pains. Freedom of speech is the great bulwark of liberty. They prosper and die together, and it is the terror of traitors and oppressors, and a barrier against them. It produces excellent writers, and encourages men of fine genius. Hide not your talents. They for use were made. What's a sundial in the shade? If you watch your pennies, the pounds will take care of themselves. There are three sorts of people in the world: those who are immovable, people who don't get it, or don't want to do anything about it. There are people who are movable, people who see the need for change and are prepared to listen to it. And there are people who move, people who make things happen. Clean your finger before you point at my spots. Sin is not hurtful because it is forbidden, but it is forbidden because it is hurtful. A man must have a good deal of vanity who believes, and a good deal of boldness who affirms, that all the doctrines he holds are true, and all he rejects are false. Do not fear mistakes. There are three things extremely hard: steel, a diamond, and to know oneself. A full belly is the mother of all evil. The doorstep to the temple of wisdom is a knowledge of our own ignorance. We should make the poor uncomfortable and kick them out of poverty. There never was a truly great man that was not at the same time truly virtuous. If you do not exclude them, in less than 200 years our descendants will be working in the fields to furnish them substance, while they will be in the counting houses rubbing their hands. I warn you, gentlemen, if you do not exclude Jews for all time, your children will curse you in your graves. He that composes himself is wiser than he that composes a book. A wise man will desire no more than what he may get justly, use soberly, distribute cheerfully, and leave contently. Among the numerous luxuries of the table, coffee may be considered as one of the most valuable. It excites cheerfulness without intoxication. and the pleasing flow of spirits which it occasions is never followed by sadness, languor, or debility. Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Many dishes, many diseases, many medicines, few cures. The next thing most like living one's life over again seems to be a recollection of that life, and to make that recollection as durable as possible by putting it down in writing. Trouble knocked at the door, but, hearing laughter, hurried away. Men take more pains to mask than men. Virtue alone is sufficient to make a man great, glorious, and happy. Marry above thy match, and you will get a master. You will find the key to success under the alarm clock. Be civil to all, serviceable to many, familiar with few, friend to one, enemy to none. I believe there is one supreme, most perfect being. I believe he is pleased and delights in the happiness of those he has created, and since without virtue man can have no happiness in this world, I firmly believe he delights to see me virtuous. None but the well-bred man knows how to confess a fault or acknowledge himself in an error. But the most dangerous hypocrite in a commonwealth is one who leaves the gospel for the sake of the law. A man compounded of law and gospel is able to cheat a whole country with his religion and then destroy them under color of law. And here the clergy are in great danger of being deceived, and the people of being deceived by the clergy, until the monster arrives to such power and wealth that he is out of the reach of both, and can oppress the people without their own blind assistance. If you would know the value of money, go and try to borrow some. In New England, they once thought blackbirds useless and mischievous to the corn. They made efforts to destroy them. The consequence was, the blackbirds were diminished, but a kind of worm, which devoured their grass, and which the blackbirds used to feed on, increased prodigiously. Then, finding their loss in grass much greater than their saving in corn, they wished again for their blackbirds. God helps them that help themselves. Those who desire to give up freedom in order to gain security will not have either one. Do not fear mistakes. You will know failure. Continue to reach out. Truth and sincerity have a certain distinguishing native luster about them which cannot be perfectly counterfeited. They are like fire and flame that cannot be painted. The best investment is in the tools of one's own trade. That there is one God who made all things. That he governs the world by his providence. That he might be worshipped by adoration, prayer, and thanksgiving. But that the most acceptable service of God is doing good to man. That the soul is immortal. And that God will certainly reward virtue and punish vice either here or hereafter. If men are so wicked as we now see them with religion, what would they be if without it? Keep your eyes wide open before marriage, half shut afterwards. You cannot pluck roses without fear of thorns, nor enjoy a fair wife without danger of horns. If by the liberty of the press were understood merely the liberty of discussing the propriety of public measures and political opinions, let us have as much of it as you please. But if it means the liberty of affronting, calumniating, and defaming one another, I, for my part, own myself willing to part with my share of it, whenever our legislators shall please so to alter the law, and shall cheerfully consent to exchange my liberty of abusing others for the privilege of not being abused. Myself. There are 3 faithful friends, an old wife, an old dog, and ready money. He's a fool that makes his doctor his heir. Let every fart count as a peal of thunder for liberty. Let every fart remind the nation of how much it has let pass out of its control. It is a small gesture, but one that can be very effective, especially in a large crowd. So fart, and if you must, fart often. But always fart without apology. Fart for freedom, fart for liberty, and fart proudly. Leisure is the time for doing something useful. To be humble to superiors is a duty, to equals courtesy, to inferiors nobleness. Don't throw stones at your neighbors if your own windows are glass. A bargain is something you have to find a use for once you have bought it. Poverty wants some things, luxury many things, avarice all things. He's the best physician that knows the worthlessness of most medicines. Behold the rain which descends from heaven upon our vineyards, there it enters the roots of the vines, to be changed into wine, a constant proof that God loves us, and loves to see us happy. Think of these things, whence you came, where you are going, and to whom you must account. We are all born without knowledge, but curious. With curiosity, we should be able to learn as much as possible. With curiosity, it has to take a lot of work to remain ignorant. My refusing to eat meat occasioned inconveniency, and I have been frequently chided for my singularity. But my light repast allows for greater progress, for greater clearness of head and quicker comprehension. He that would travel much should eat little. He that goes a-borrowing goes a-sorrowing. Nothing is more fatal to health than an overcare of it.